Greetings and salutations. Vince Robinson here with an edition of Open Door Live. I am very privileged to have two very esteemed guests. One is someone who you know and love. His name is Terrence Spivey. He is the founding artistic director of Powerful Long Ladder. He's done some fantastic things, not only at Karamu, which is the nation's oldest historically Black theatrical institution. He has branched out into different parts of the country. And recently, he spent some time in Mobile, Alabama, where he created a play and staged a play called Ocean in My Bones. It has led to some phenomenal things, including a film that has connections to the Obamas and their Higher Ground production company, and also Netflix. It is going to premiere Friday night on Netflix, and they're going to have a premiere of this film in Mobile, Alabama. So with that, I would like to welcome to our program Terrence Spivey, and also we have Vernetta Henson. She is a descendant of one of the folks that this play was actually created about. It's a powerful story. I guess that goes along with Powerful Long Ladder. We're going to bring Mr. Spivey into the conversation, and also Vernetta Henson. Welcome to the program, Vernetta and Terrence.
All right. Hello. All
right. So,
hello, Vernetta. Good to see you again.
Yes. We spent quite a bit of time in Mobile, Terrence. So I'm going to let you set it up because you know the story so well. I mean, yeah. Terrence, you've been in the New York Times. You've been, on cable TV. You've been on all these networks. You got international shine going on because you have connected with these folks in Mobile. Wow. And it's just a phenomenal story. And I don't know that I could do it justice. So I'm going to let you do it. And then I'm going to bring in Ms. Henson and let her give us her story of how she is connected, because she's in the film, as well as her daughter. Yes. And quite a few other folks who are down there and immersed in this story. So tell us about this. Tell us about the story, and tell us what the background of Clotilda.
Well, let me just. I feel honored you asked me that, Vince. Thank you for allowing me to come on. But I would just like to talk about how I came about with the play, and the story connected with the play, and then Ms. Vernetta, she'll be the one to kind of, because she's the expert. I'm just happy to be on here with her. But they reached, Clotilda Descendants Association reached out to me a year and a half ago. Jocelyn Davis and Darren Patterson, at the time they were president, vice president, and they reached out to me during the lockdown, and they said, hey, they found me through a friend, Greg Cyprian. Greg Cyprian has seen a production of mine years ago. I did an adaptation of James Weldon Johnson's God's Trombones at Karamu when I was there. He was just blown away by the play. He talked me up for years, and he told many of people, including the members of the Clotilda Descendants Association, about me. And like a year and a half ago, Jocelyn Davis and them Facebook me and said, hey, we would love for you to consider. We'd like to bring you in to write a play and direct this play about the Clotilda ship. I said, Clotilda. I was very aware of it because during my time with when I connected with Greg, he brought me to Mobile, and he drove me around Africatown and around Mobile. I was learning so much about Mobile itself. Satchel Paige, Hank Aaron, the gentleman, the Miracle Mets. Was it Cleon Jones, I think? Am I saying it right? And then what really got me was about the Mardi Gras. I didn't know Mobile was the one that founded the Mardi Gras. But what really stuck out even more so when he took me to Africatown. And I had no way of connecting the dots with Africatown and the Clotilda. I heard of the Clotilda before, but I didn't know the extension of the ship. It had been an illegal ship, importing Africans from the Dahomey. And so they wanted me to do a story. They said, look, we don't have any stories of our own to own. They're books about our ancestors who survived, who was on the Clotilda, and there are movies coming out. And as a matter of fact, Johnson said, I'm just now finished the film called Descendant. Around the time they had just finished and they were editing. Margaret Brown, the filmmaker, was editing the movie. It was like a year and a half ago. So I said, we would love to do a play. I don't know how. I'm going to send you a list of some of the ancestors' names that we need to really profile somehow. So she sent me about 15, I think. I'm like, how can I get these in a standard narrative play? So I went the unconventional way. So I decided to write this piece. I said, the ship, I did a lot of research, read Natalie Robinson's book, and of course, Deborah Platt, the editor for Barracoon. She had, of course, when it was updated and set and published in 2018, I looked at that and a couple other books. And I said, and I did more research, realized it was founded. Oh, God. Oh, crap.
We're here. We're still here.
Oh, crap.
Okay. We're still here, Terrence.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we're still here. Sometimes we have these technical issues, and while he, I guess, gets resituated, I just want to give you a little more background. The film Descendant is a remarkable and moving new Netflix documentary. It was directed by Margaret Brown and produced by Barack and Michelle Obama's Higher Ground. It's the story of the discovery of that ship, the Clotilda, in 2019 and what it means to the Mobile suburb of Africatown. What's amazing in that these times of constant movement, how many people who currently live in the Bay Area are actually from the Bay Area? And they're talking about the Bay Area of Alabama, is that the Mobile Africatown area remains the home of more than 100 descendants of enslaved Africans brought by the Clotilda, as well as descendants of others known as Meir and Foster. Brown explores the grim history of the Clotilda enslaved and their descendants for decades, talking about the Clotilda around white people was risking death. And there's footage of Cujo Lewis, one of the last surviving enslaved individuals from the ship, who died in 1935. And in that film, you'll meet his direct descendant, Emmett Lewis, who's the caretaker of the Africatown graveyard where Cujo is buried. Descendant was awarded a special jury award for creative vision at the Sundance Film Festival. And it isn't just about the discovery of an historical artifact. It documents how Africatown has been the victim of suppression for decades. The town is surrounded by industrial pollution, educational and employment opportunities have been lacking. And wouldn't you know that the tourism that is anticipated from the finding of the sunken ship will benefit many white business owners, and including the person who declined to participate in the film. So that's just a bit of the background. And it looks like Terrence is having a technical difficulty. So I'm just going to switch gears and talk to Vernetta Henson. So again, welcome to the broadcast, Ms. Henson. I'm sure that you have a lot of stories to tell. When we were about to begin this broadcast, you gave me a little bit of history. So just give me what your connection to Africatown is and your connection to that ship that we have been identifying as Clotilda.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It's such an honor. I'm tied to the Clotilda descendants, to the survivors of the Clotilda descendants, in as much as my second great grandparents, Rose and Polly Allen, were aboard that ship. They had 3 children, which my great grandmother was one of those children. And then after Rose passed away, he married Lucy, and they had about 13 children. So my descendancy goes back that far, and I've been kept in touch with my descendancy through my grandparents and through other members of our family. They hold it close, and they're very pleased with the place that they have come from their upbringing, the values that they received from the people who on the ship that was passed down to them, and their desire to survive, and their prayers that they feel that God answered and allowed them to survive. and bring forth generations. Now, my grandparents were married at Union Baptist Church. Myself, my daughter, and my son were all married at Union Baptist Church. So it's historic in our own family as well as in the neighborhood. It was one of the first churches out there when they established the Union Baptist Church. It was called the Old Baptist Church. And of course, they started worshiping at a white church downtown and then moved to Stone Street. And as time progressed, they moved to Union Baptist. My second great grandfather, Polly Allen, along with being one of the founders, was a minister there at some time too. But our history is so strong and our story is one that must be told. We've come a long ways and we've still got a ways to go. But the story is, in essence, being able to show the world the cultural side of Africatown. So many times it's mistaken and people look at it as a tribal entity of the state, which is not. All of the descendants were well educated, well spoken, and did well in their chosen careers. And it was all because of the things that was instilled in them as children, and they brought those values forth.
Yes. So when you talk about this town that existed and continues to exist, and you give us the context of the fact that it wasn't just this tribal entity, that there were folks who were educated. Africatown is actually one of the best success stories of Black people in this country that goes untold. So I'm sure it must be gratifying for you to be in a position where now the world knows that there was Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was wiped out, but Africatown existed and it continues to exist. What are your thoughts or feelings about being connected to such a great story?
It's an honor to be connected to such a great story. It gives me an opportunity to leave a legacy to my children and grandchildren and to let them know that there's progress to be made and we're still making progress. And I'm hoping that the younger generation will carry on what has been instilled in them. Of course, we come from a different era because most of us, my generation, my grandparents didn't work. My grandmother didn't work. So I had that training on a 24-hour basis, so to speak. And now the new generation is sometimes both parents work, so they don't have that continuous exposure like the older generation did.
Okay. What has been the feedback that you've gotten from the community? I'm sure that having a play such as Ocean in My Bones being staged and awareness being generated that way has probably made the story known to a lot more. But what are the things that are being said in your community about this film and the play that Terrence created and produced there?
Well, the play was well received. It was well done, and we're happy about that. And it just opened doors because a lot of people didn't know who some of the descendants were. So I've had people to tell me, I didn't know that person was a descendant. We have some people that are on Broadway, some people that are in broadcast and education, administrative roles. And a lot of people didn't know that. And it was because that as a child coming up, we were taught to be proud people, but not to be unproud of our heritage. We had to be who we were because the Caucasians or Europeans kind of convinced us that we were inferior, and we were brought up to know that we were superior to the next person.
You know, a few days ago, I witnessed a film called Till. It's the story of Emmett Till.
I remember him
Murder
down in
down there.
Mississippi.
Yes, and it was really more of the story of how his mother dealt with the murder. But when you watch this film, you get a really graphic sense of how we were discriminated against. I mean, to think that crime occurred and two people not only committed the crime, got away with the crime, and then years later, and not long after it happened, they admitted that they did it. And the woman who was the catalyst for that, 94 years old, still alive, and she's taking no responsibility for that. This is something that happened back in the 50s. Now let's fast forward to 2022. I just want to ask you, as someone who has lived in the South, I'm assuming for all of that time, what has changed about the racial dynamics then as compared to now?
That's a tough one because within myself, I don't feel that they've changed a lot. The presence of the element is still there. The people just don't show it as easily as they did back in the 60s and 70s. In the 50s, we had some things that we knew we didn't face white people, but now it's okay to face them. And I think it's the education of people now that they've learned that people are people and they don't look at race, color, or anything like that. And that makes the difference because
Okay.
we were labeled as, when I was a child, we were labeled as colored. Then we got to be Negroes. In fact, it wasn't when I was a child. My marriage license in 1969 references myself and my husband as colored. And, when you say colored to somebody now, they look at you like, what are you talking about? Because we went from coloreds to Negroes to niggers to blacks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a good way to put it, but it's a truthful way to put it.
Yes. So tell us about your participation in the making of this film. I know you're in it, and your daughter's in it, and several others. Talk about what it was like for you to be a part of this film production.
Oh my God. It's phenomenal. It's more than I ever thought about doing. Never thought about it, but I'm glad to be able to be a part of it. And I'm at 73, I'm one of the older generations. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot to bring to the table, and I'm encouraging the young people to do the same thing.
Okay.
I would like to see a sequel to it before I leave this world.
Okay. What would that sequel include? What would it involve from your vision of it?
It would involve the openness and acceptance of what the play really meant, what the film really means, that people are to be received on their own platform and not discriminated against for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. I would have to think that a town like Africatown pretty much dispels all the misconceptions about us being lazy, about us being uneducated, about us, wanting to take advantage of a system to sit back and collect a welfare check every week. When you look at a town and all of the things that are required for a town to function properly and for folks to prosper, I'm assuming that that's what you saw there. Do you have any memories or any recollections or any time that you spent in that place?
I do. I spent a lot of time there. Like I say, I was brought up in Union Baptist Church. We got married in '69. We moved away for 5 years. And when we came back, it was probably about '89 when I went back to Union because I worshiped with my husband until the children were adults.
Mm-hmm.
But every city, every state has this Africatown, and they label it as what they see when they come into the community. Of course, with no industry, no stores, no nothing. It's nothing else to call the people but survivors. That's what I call them. I don't label them as being lazy. I call them survivors. And if there was sufficient means for them to make a living there, I think they would do it. But they're right now they're kind of at an apathetic stage where it's let's see what tomorrow brings. I
When
get
you,
kind of disgruntled when I go through the area and see everything torn down. I can remember when my grandmother lived over there, she was saying how she had to keep the yard clean and all that stuff. They used brush brooms to make sure that everything was in order. And when we moved to Tolmanville, she kept everything intact and in order. And the residents over there don't do that now. People
Mhm.
were poor, but they didn't know they were poor because they made a way somehow or another. And there was a lot more cohesiveness back then as far as family units, community units, because people stuck together. They didn't ask you anything about your business, but if they knew you needed something or thought you needed something, what they felt was God made provision for it.
Mhm. As I was giving information about the film, there was some conversation about the fact that it's kind of in the middle of an industrial area, so there's a lot of chemical, I guess, pollution and whatnot. So you have this community of Black folk, and they're living under conditions uh, that perhaps can contribute to how can I put this? It just diminishes your ability to live a healthy life. You know, it kind of goes along with the reality for a lot of Black people in this country who live in urban areas in proximity to industrialization and the impact that industrialization has. Are you aware of any impact on the lives of the people who live in Africatown that was caused by the fact that they were surrounded by industry?
Well, I'll say it like this. I think we became our own problem after they allowed us to work. When you worked at the paper mill, you made a decent living and you were well respected in the community. But at the same time, we were not privy to all the medical information that we needed to know. We didn't go to the doctors on a regular basis like we do now. And I have many family members who have died earlier than 60 years old because of being a part of that environment, died of cancer.
Yes. Yeah, there have been films about that phenomenon, and there's one that I'm thinking about. I think Julia Roberts may have been the lead actress on that role, and it was a film about these electric power lines and the
Mm.
fact that there was some type of chemical in that area that was causing people to have cancer. And they took this information to Congress, but the Congress people really didn't want to act upon it because they didn't want to disrupt the corporations that were making money because of that paradigm that existed. So I just have to imagine that it could have been a similar scenario around Africatown. And because of that, as you just indicated, many people got cancer and probably died sooner than they had to. But I really just want to underscore the fact that this is a story about success. It's not completely a story about victimization. I mean, when we think about the fact that the descendants, or that our ancestors actually, who were on that ship that was illegal at the time, were at some point were able to obtain their freedom. And not only did they obtain their freedom, but they were able to create a situation where they could be self-sufficient and they could thrive. You know, now when you fast forward to 2022, you know that we definitely have challenges when it comes to that, just because of all the forces that work against us. If you're saying that you're 73 years old and you can remember back in the day where we faced the type of discrimination that we faced in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, and it seems as though we're still facing those that racism, the result of the bigotry and the prejudices and the biases that exist in our society, not a whole lot has changed. So what has to happen is that we as a people have to decide that we're going to change things for ourselves, and we have to take more of an active part in creating the reality that suits us rather than succumbing to the reality that others want to create for us. Just looking back and moving forward to today, What is your hope for folks who live in your part of the state, your part of the country, that we can perhaps live a better life, not only in the future but now?
It's my hope that they will embrace the people who are still living in Africatown and help them to reach their potential. There are a lot of smart people out there who can't reach their potential because they can't see tomorrow. And we want the rest of the world to embrace them after they've seen their story and their plight to succeed. And we want them also to look back and say, if grandmama did it, I can do it. That
Mm.
was their mentality, that if it could be done, we can do it too. And
Yeah.
they've always had that quote, strive for greater. That's what they did. They felt there was nothing. They were very spiritual people for the first part, and they believed so deeply in God that when anything happened in their favor, they realized that their prayers had been answered.
Yes. So, having this knowledge of the fact that that ship existed, you had to know about it, being a descendant of those who were on it. What was it like for you to find out that the ship had been discovered?
It was kind of gratifying, but still it was disheartening because I didn't want to relive the memories that they had. They weren't happy campers on that ship, and you don't want to see anybody else down. But on the other hand, if we can grow from it, that's what we want to do.
Yeah. So, is it your feeling that we have grown from it?
I think so. I really think we have grown from the experiences that they had because they told us how to, they led us and guided us. They didn't
Mhm.
just throw us out on our own, so they laid a path for us. This is the way to success. And a lot of us followed it and it paid off. If anybody could go back and look in the history books, well, not in the history books, if they could look at their surroundings and see the number of people, African Americans, who have succeeded because of their plight to, I'm going to rise above this. So I think Maya Angelou said it best, didn't she? I'll rise above.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's just I guess it's just rewarding to know that we've had those kinds of success stories, despite the odds and challenges that you disclosed to us. I was curious about what your role in the film was. What were some of the things that you brought to the table that didn't hit the cutting room floor, that stayed in the film? Can you remember what you said in the movie?
I can't remember a lot of it per se, but I know a lot of it was my story, was reflections of the values my grandmother taught me and how she taught me things to do around the house. The kitchen was her haven, and it's mine too.
Hmm. And your daughter was also in the film. Can you share with us what she talked about?
Well, because they were done at such different times, most times we weren't together.
Okay.
So I
So
don't know.
so you haven't seen it yet. I guess Friday night, if you watch Netflix, or
Friday night when
Saturday,
I watch Netflix,
you're gonna go to the premiere and see it for the first time.
if I can get there. I say
Okay.
if I can get there because I walk slow now.
Okay. Well,
But
somehow,
yes, it's my plan to be there.
okay, somehow we got to find a way. They say where there's a will, there's a way. So we
Hmm.
we got to see you in that theater on Saturday night.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. Are you going to be coming down also?
No, I'm not going to be able to make it, but our friend Terrence is going to make sure. I'm sure he's going to make sure for us that we have a chance to not only see the film, but have a conversation about it. I do have access to Netflix, so
Okay.
Friday night, I'll be able to tune in and see it for myself. But just before we go, I just want to get your reflections on the play that he did. What are your thoughts about the play Ocean in My Bones?
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And he stuck with the attire of that age because I was telling him after the play, I told him, I said, you did show my second great grandmother in an apron, and I never saw my grandmother without an apron on. And he remembered me telling him that before the play, and he made sure that she had one on. And
Mm-hmm.
those little things are gratifying to know that those are the things that we draw from. We don't draw from monetary, tangible items. We draw from spiritual values and concepts of living.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will tell you, just knowing Terrence, that he's very thorough in his research. And we talked about this play before he executed it and afterwards. And he talked about the research that he did and the fact that he interviewed several people and he wanted to include things in that play that had a direct correlation to the concerns that the descendants had. You know, there's a
Hmm.
Clotilda Descendants Association. Are you a
Right.
part of that group?
I am. I am.
Okay. So, you know, his thoroughness is reflected in what you saw about that piece about the apron, and I'm sure there's a lot more in that. What do you think people take away when they see that play? And it's coming back, from what I understand.
Yeah, it's supposed to be coming back. The comments that I've heard is that they did not know conditions existed like that back then. And the next question was, how did those people survive? And a lot of people have been thinking that there were 110 people that were dropped off in the Mobile area. That's how many were loaded up from the village in Benin.
Hmm.
They were dropped off in different locations. Some were dropped off in Selma, some in Vinegar Bend, G's Bend, some in Clark County. But there were 32 that stayed in Africatown. And when I started adding up things that I had heard over the years, my grandmother had told me when they put the people on the ship, they did male, female, but it was an even number. So when they left at 32 over there in Africatown, it meant that nobody could usurp anybody and take advantage of them. Everybody had a partner, so to speak. And I've often wondered about that, but I guess they have their reasons for having done it that way. But I
Hmm.
do know that for when they brought the male female on the ships, that it was for procreation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had a perpetual labor supply as a result of that, which they took
Mm-hmm.
advantage of literally for decades, and they're still
Mm-hmm.
profiting from what they did way back then. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, things move forward. There has been some progress made in terms of how we live our lives and the things that we're doing. And thankfully, there are folks like Terrence who can create plays that shine a light on this, and also filmmakers like Margaret Brown who can put together a film that also gives greater exposure to the issues and gives us a reason to celebrate ourselves. You know, we are survivors. We survived that voyage under very deplorable conditions, and there were literally millions that didn't survive. But we talk about this all the time in terms of who Black people in America are. And this is something that we really need to fully comprehend and embrace. And that is that we are the strongest of the strong. You know, not only
Mm-hmm.
did we survive, but when you look at all the contributions that African Americans have made, not only to this country, but to
Mm-hmm.
civilization in general. I mean, I live in Cleveland, Ohio. Garrett E. Morgan lived in this city. He created the traffic light. Traffic lights are used around the world. You know, you look at basic things like refrigerators, like ice cream, like the golf tee. I mean, you could go down a long list of things that we created because, you know, when you look at it from its real central core, humanity exists because of sisters.
It does.
You know, so you know everybody in the world owes their existence to you.
Well, I'm hoping that the descendants, African Americans in general, will leave after having seen the play with a renewed pride in themselves as individuals, as contributors to society, as meaningful people.
Hmm.
We all have a story to tell, and we all have a life to live. And how we live it and how we tell it is a perception of the heart.
Yes. Well, Vernetta Henson, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us and shining more light on the story of those who came before you. I congratulate you for the work that you did that led to being included in this film, as well as others. And I congratulate you for connecting with my good friend Terrence Spivey. I'm sure that even though he couldn't participate in the broadcast, because what happened was his phone died.
Okay.
That's what happened. So nothing he
Well,
could
I
do.
am very pleased to be here, and I'm looking forward to whenever you want me for anything. I have a cousin up there in Cleveland, Brian Allen. He dips in radio a bit.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the premiere Saturday. I'm just going to put it out there. Vernetta Henson is going to find a way because her will demand that she be there. Uh,
That's it.
Peace, blessings, and prosperity to you. And again, congratulations.
Okay, and thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, and you have a good night.
You too.
Okay, bye bye.
Peace.